Hi, I'm Jazz, the face behind Jazmine Alexa Photography, and welcome to the channel. I really just want to bring you guys along on my journey to becoming a full-time photographer and using this as kind of like a little archive to look back on the further I go, and ultimately just to bring as much value as I can to not only photographers, but anybody being photographed. I am 22 years old and I am based out of SoCal. I was born in SoCal, but I wasn't raised in SoCal. I am a military brat, so I had the opportunity to live in a lot of different states, mostly the Bible Belt, I think it's called, so mostly the South. I grew up mostly in the South, but I've been back in California for a little over 2 years now. I want to start by saying that I'm not a natural-born photographer. I seriously admire people who have these beautiful stories of having come out the womb with a camera in their hand or having their first camera passed down to them from like their great-grandfather or their parent, and that is definitely not the case for me. As you might have guessed, I come from a background of healthcare, specifically ophthalmology or like advanced eye care if you aren't familiar. I very quickly realized that healthcare was not for me. I first started in the field when I was living in Stillwater, Oklahoma, when the pandemic very first started. And I just remember looking around my clinic and seeing other nurses and healthcare professionals who've been working in the field for like 20, maybe 30 years. And I would ask them, you know, do you love this job? Or what do you love about this job? There's a reason, you know, why somebody stays that many years in a profession, you know? And every single time they would answer me with a little bit of sadness, just a little bit in their voice. And it was always, the work that I do is so important. And the benefits are great. And that kind of like only confirmed the feelings that I was already experiencing about healthcare, you know? At the same time, I grew up in a Hispanic household. I am a first-gen American and a firstborn. So I always felt a lot of pressure to set a good example. Our parents sacrificed a lot for us to have opportunities that they did not have. And so I almost felt guilty, you know, even thinking about leaving healthcare. It felt kind of wrong, if that makes any sense. I'm not gonna lie, I almost feel a little guilty admitting this. My ego would light up whenever I got the opportunity to let somebody know what I worked as or what my job was. It felt really good to say like, I'm a nurse. I'm an ophthalmic tech, you know? It sounded fancy. And even though I wasn't fulfilled doing that work, you know, for just a moment, I felt like important. Fast forward to a little over 2 years ago, some family that I had living here in Cali actually extended the olive branch to me and convinced me to move to SoCal again, and I did. I got in my little 2012 Honda Civic and I drove all the way from Oklahoma to little SoCal, and here I am. My first little transition job when I got here was at this little coffee shop that wasn't too far from where I was staying at the time, and I met my now best friend and biggest supporter. He plays such a big role in my photo journey, so I just had to include him in the story. I pretty quickly went right back into eye care just because, I mean, to be honest, it was a really reliable paycheck. And after the newness of the job kind of wore off, I realized that I still really felt the same way about eye care as I had before, and that nothing had really changed for me when it came to that type of work. At that point, I was really feeling the urge to be creative. I went to college for performing arts, musical theater, but I had to leave college when the virus hit, and I I hadn't really done anything creative up until that point in my life. On a truly random whim, I bought my first camera. It was a Canon Rebel SL3, all reliable, just for hobby photography. Ivan, my romantic partner, and I love to hike. We love to travel to new places and experience new things. So I thought it would be perfect to like capture our adventures. While I was kind of getting a little more into photography, I felt like I was getting my spark back. I was excited about it, and the more pictures I took, the more excited I got. I really was starting to enjoy creating images, so I had this little inkling that I wanted to take it a step further. So I started taking pictures for family, like Christmas pictures and Valentine's Day pictures, those types of things. My first, looking back on this, it sounds so crazy, but my first ever paid work was a series of 30 15-minute Valentine's Day minis over the course of one weekend, 2 days. Now, I don't know if I would ever do that again, but I went into it knowing that it was going to be a valuable experience. And it was. I got to shoot in all types of different light, and I got to work with a lot of different personalities. So yeah, I got my values worth out of that one. At this point, I was still working my 9-to-5 job, but for the first time, I was starting to think about whether I could turn photography into something a little more than a side gig or like a side hustle. The big switch for me was when a family friend of a friend had hired me to capture their wedding. And I was so nervous. I remember scouring the internet for any wedding photography advice I could find. I think Caitlin James was like my saving grace at the time. Thank God for her posting like her full wedding day behind the scenes, or I don't know how I would have done it. But I think I charged like $700 for this 10-hour day. But I mean, I was just so excited to even be earning that much money in a single day. I don't think I'd ever earned $700 in one single day for anything. So I was stoked. I was stoked to be there regardless, you know. It was such an incredible experience. It was a super cool Chicano couple who did like a little backyard wedding. It was gorgeous. But I mean, they were so kind to me and they treated me so well. That day I went home and my feet were throbbing. My back was so sore. But let me tell you, man, I've never been more happy to be hurting like that. I think that night I was like, this is it right here. And I made the decision, you know, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I did my research, you know, and I did some soul searching, and I sat down with Ivan and I told him, you know, I'm thinking about pursuing wedding photography as a career. I remember his response. He just said, okay, how can I help you reach your goal? Literally cute tears of joy, you guys. Not too long after that, I made the decision to leave my 9-to-5. And let me tell y'all, whoo, that was terrifying. You know, I knew I was leaving a good, steady paycheck. Straight and simple, plain and simple, you know, but I read somewhere about this concept that we get to choose our hard. Building a business is hard, but working 60 hours a week in a job you hate is also hard. Bringing all that nasty energy home to your loved ones is hard, you know? So thinking about it like that, you know, I probably ran those ideas in my head like maybe like 600,000 times as I was waiting to talk to my doctor and tell him. That made the decision a little easier. That was a little under a year ago, actually. Since then, I picked up a part-time position at an Amazon warehouse working flex. You kind of get to pick up shifts at your convenience, which is amazing. So whenever I'm not there, I am photographing as much as I can. I've now photographed 4 weddings as a second shooter, and little by little I'm booking out my 2024 and 2025 season, which is super exciting. I definitely am making less income, you know, than I ever have. So I'm not gonna glamorize the hustle at all. I'm working towards building a 6-figure photography business in the coming couple of years. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of the book I Can Teach You to Be Rich by, what is that author's name? It's like Ramit. Give me 1 second. I think I have the book right here. Okay, this guy right here, Ramit Sethi. Highly recommend. He talks about this concept of your rich life and how everybody's rich life looks a little bit different. Obviously, because we all have different values, different things that are important to each of us. For some people, the center of their universe is their work, their job. But for me, it is my relationships, the really important people in my life. Our time here is so limited. I mean, if we're being honest, we get a good 70 years if we're lucky. I want to spend as much of my life being present, being intentional with the important people in my life, and creating a space where the people I work with can do the same thing. Whether it's a wedding day or a couple session or a portrait session, it doesn't matter. If I can get you out of your head and exist where your feet are, then I've done my job. I hope you'll follow me on this journey. This would be a perfect time to like and subscribe. If you'd like to further follow my work, I do post on the Jazmine Alexa Photography Instagram every single day. If you are a photographer, I would love to know how you knew this was your path. If you are someone who falls into the category of photographed or would like to be photographed, I'd love to hear your most memorable photo shoot experience. If you have not been photographed, what would make for a really valuable photo shoot experience for you? Let me know in the comments below. Siempre con amor, you guys. I'll catch you on the next one.